Have you ever felt like your own body is starting to betray you? Maybe it is a sharp pain in your knee when you stand up after dinner. Or perhaps your hands just do not have the strength they used to. It is a quiet and frustrating feeling that many of us try to ignore.
I remember the exact moment it hit me. I was just trying to open a simple jar of pickles for my grandson. My hands were shaking, and no matter how hard I twisted, nothing happened. I had to look at him and say, "I am sorry, Grandma just cannot do it."
That is a heartbreaking realization, Mary. And you are certainly not alone in this struggle. For millions of Americans over 60, this is the scary reality of losing independence. We often think it is just a natural part of getting older.
But what if I told you it does not have to be this way? Much of that stiffness and weakness comes from hidden inflammation. And surprisingly, it is often triggered by the foods we think are healthy.
That is exactly what we are uncovering today. We are going to reveal 3 common foods that are secretly hurting your muscles and joints. But more importantly, we have 3 simple daily replacements to help support your strength and vitality.
I never thought my breakfast choices were the reason I could not garden anymore.
It is a subtle shift, but it makes a world of difference for your mobility.
Stick with us, because understanding this could be the first step to feeling like yourself again. Mary, let us go back to when you first noticed things were changing. Mary, looking at you now, it is hard to imagine you ever felt stuffed. But tell us about the person you were before all this started.
Oh, I was always on the move. My garden was my sanctuary. I could spend hours on my knees planting roses and hydrangeas. I never thought twice about carrying heavy bags of mulch or reaching for the high branches.
You felt invincible in a way.
Exactly. I just felt full of life and energy.
So when did that version of Mary start to fade away?
It started with a dull ache in my knees that just would not go away. At first, I told myself I was just working too hard. But then every morning felt like a battle just to get out of bed. My legs felt heavy, and my hands had this constant pins and needles sensation.
That must have been so confusing and frightening.
It was because I felt like I was losing my grip on my own life. I started making excuses to stay inside. I stopped calling my friends for walks because I did not want them to see me struggling.
You were isolating yourself to protect your dignity.
Yes, and the shame was the heaviest part to carry. I remember one afternoon when my grandson ran up to me for a hug. Normally, I would scoop him up and twirl him around. But that day, my arms felt like lead. I was so afraid my muscles would just give out and I would drop him. I had to gently push him away and sit down. The look of confusion on his little face broke my heart.
That is such a powerful and painful image. Doctor, many people watching right now are nodding their heads because they have felt that same fear.
What Mary experienced is what we call the silent erosion of independence. It is not just about the physical pain in the joints. It is the emotional weight of feeling like you are becoming a passenger in your own body. Many patients tell me they feel like they are fading away, and they often blame themselves or their age.
Is it really just a factor of getting older, though?
That is the biggest misconception I see in my clinic every day. While our bodies change, this level of weakness and inflammation is often preventable. We have to look at what is fueling that fire from the inside.
That is a perfect lead-in to the specific things we might be doing every day without realizing it. Mary, you mentioned something earlier about a simple jar of pickles. It turns out that what was inside that jar was part of the problem. Doctor, let us talk about the first food on our list that might be sabotaging our strength. Mary, you mentioned that pickle jar earlier, and it seemed like a turning point for you.
It really was. It was just a regular Tuesday afternoon in my kitchen. My grandson wanted a snack and asked for one of those big, crunchy pickles he loves. I grabbed the jar and I gripped it as hard as I could. But it felt like my hands were made of glass. There was no strength, and my knuckles just burned. I felt so small standing there, unable to open a simple jar in my own home.
That feeling of helplessness is something many of our viewers know all too well. But doctor, the irony here is that the very thing Mary was trying to open was actually part of the problem.
That is exactly right. Pickled foods and anything high in sodium are the first major culprits we need to discuss.
Wait, aren't pickles just fermented vegetables? Most people think of them as a healthy snack.
They can be, but for someone over 60, the massive amount of salt is like an invisible weight on your system. Think of your blood like a river. When you eat too much sodium, that river becomes too salty. To balance it out, your body starts holding on to every drop of water it can find.
So that explains why people wake up feeling puffy or swollen.
Precisely. That extra fluid builds up pressure around your joints and inside your muscle tissues. It makes everything feel stiff and heavy. It also slows down your circulation, which leads to that tingling sensation Mary described.
I had no idea that my favorite side dish was causing my hands to tingle.
Think of a delicate machine sitting in salt water. Over time, the parts start to corrode and they do not move smoothly anymore. That is what constant high sodium does to your joints as you age.
So the very thing that makes the food taste good is actually making us feel older than we are.
In many cases, yes. It is an unnecessary inflammatory trigger that we can easily control.
That is an incredible insight, but I know most people are thinking about dinner now. If pickles are the side dish, what about the main course? Is the meat we eat every night also working against us?
Actually, the next food on our list is a staple in most American households. And for those over 60, it can be a recipe for chronic morning stiffness.
We are going to dive into that right after this. Doctor, most of us grew up believing that a big steak is the ultimate source of strength. We were told that if you want strong muscles, you need red meat.
I certainly believed that. I used to make sure we had beef or pork on the table at least 4 nights a week. I thought I was doing the right thing to keep my energy up.
It is a very common belief, but for those over 60, it can actually backfire.
That sounds completely backwards to what we have been taught. How can protein make us weaker?
It is not the protein itself, but what comes with it in red meat and organ meats. These foods are high in saturated fats and compounds called purines. When your body breaks down these purines, it creates something called uric acid.
I have heard of uric acid in relation to gout, but does it affect everyone?
As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at filtering that acid out. It starts to crystallize in your joints. Imagine thousands of tiny, microscopic shards of glass wedged between your bones.
That is exactly how my knees feel in the morning. It is a sharp, stabbing stiffness that makes me want to stay in bed.
That is the inflammation speaking, Mary. And there is a second part to this that most people do not realize. Digesting heavy red meat takes a massive amount of energy from your system. In your 60s, your metabolism is already changing. Instead of building muscle, your body is struggling just to process the meal. This can lead to a feeling of total exhaustion and heavy limbs.
So we think we are fueling up, but we are actually draining our batteries.
Exactly. It can become a protein overload that your body may struggle to handle efficiently.
I noticed that after a big steak dinner, I would feel so sluggish the next day. I just assumed I was getting old and tired.
It was likely the inflammatory response to the meat, not just your age.
This is a huge shift in how we look at our dinner plates. But we have one more food to talk about before we get to the solutions. And this one is tricky because it is often marketed as a healthy, low-calorie option.
Yes, and if you do not prepare it correctly, it contains something called anti-nutrients. These can actually block your body from absorbing the minerals your muscles need to stay strong.
That sounds like a double-edged sword. We will reveal what that food is and how to fix it in just a moment. All right, doctor, we have covered high sodium and red meats. But you mentioned a third food that people often think is healthy, but could be a trap.
That is right, and it is something a lot of people enjoy in soups or stir-fries. I am talking about fresh bamboo shoots and certain raw forest vegetables.
Oh, I love bamboo shoots. They are so crunchy and low in calories. How could something so natural be causing me trouble?
It comes down to something called anti-nutrients.
Anti-nutrients? That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
Think of them as a plant's natural defense system. In their raw or undercooked state, bamboo shoots contain compounds that act like mineral blockers. They can interfere with how your body absorbs calcium and zinc.
And we know how important calcium is for someone over 60.
Exactly. When these mineral blockers enter your system, they prevent your muscles from getting the nutrients they need to contract and relax. This leads to those painful middle-of-the-night leg cramps.
I get those all the time. I thought it was just because I was dehydrated.
It could be dehydration, but if you are eating these foods frequently without proper prep, they are likely contributing to that muscle weakness.
Does this mean we have to stop eating them entirely?
Not necessarily, but you must be very careful with how you prepare them. You should boil fresh bamboo shoots multiple times and change the water each time. This helps wash away those mineral blockers before they get into your body.
So it is all about the preparation, not just the food itself.
Precisely.
We have talked about the three big triggers: excess salt, red meat, and mineral-blocking vegetables. It feels like a lot to remember. But Mary, you actually found a way to flip the script, right?
I did, and it was much easier than I expected. I stopped focusing on what I could not have and started looking at what my body was actually craving.
That is the perfect place to pivot. We have covered what is hurting you. Now let us talk about the 3 golden foods that can help you rebuild that strength.
These are simple, everyday items that most of you already have in your kitchen.
We are starting with something that might be the most underrated protein source for people over 60. We have spent a lot of time talking about what we need to cut back on. But now we get to the good part. Doctor, what is the first golden food we should be adding to our plates to reclaim our strength?
The first one is actually very humble and often overlooked in the American diet. I am talking about tofu and high-quality plant proteins.
Tofu? Honestly, I used to think tofu was only for people who spent all day at the gym. I never thought it was something for someone like me.
I hear that a lot, Mary, but for those of us over 60, tofu is a genuine ally for your health.
Why is it so much better than the red meat we talked about earlier?
It all comes down to digestion and inflammation. As we age, our stomach acid naturally decreases. This makes breaking down a heavy steak very difficult for your system. Tofu is what I call a gentle protein. It is incredibly easy for your body to process without causing that heavy, sluggish feeling.
So it provides the building blocks for muscle without the digestive tax.
Exactly. And unlike red meat, it is naturally anti-inflammatory. It also contains plant-based calcium, which is vital for bone density. Plus, it is much easier on your kidneys.
I can actually vouch for this change. When I first talked to you, doctor, I started swapping out my beef for tofu twice a week. I was skeptical about the taste at first, but after just a week, I noticed my stomach felt lighter after dinner. And when I woke up, my knees did not feel as angry or swollen.
Did not feel as angry. I love that description, Mary. It is like you are putting out the fire in your joints.
That is exactly how it felt.
That is the power of reducing that internal inflammation. When you stop fueling the fire with red meat and start nourishing with plant protein, your body responds quickly.
This is such a simple switch that anyone can make on their next grocery trip. It is affordable and it is effective. But doctor, you said there are 3 golden foods. What is the second one?
The second one is a small nut that packs a huge punch for joint health. I like to think of it as a natural lubricant for your bones.
Like tratimzo chamotkenku kubiket.
Precisely.
We are back with our second golden food for anyone over 60. Doctor, you mentioned something about lubricating our joints. It sounds like we are talking about maintaining a classic car.
In a way, we are. As we get older, our joints can lose their natural moisture and start to feel creaky. The second golden food that supports joint health.
Peanuts? I have always loved them as a snack, but I never knew they were therapeutic.
Most people do not realize that peanuts are packed with healthy monounsaturated fats. These fats act like a natural oil for your joint surfaces. They help reduce that friction that causes the grinding feeling when you walk.
So it is literally like oiling a squeaky hinge.
Exactly. And they are also rich in magnesium, which is a key mineral for muscle relaxation.
You know, I started eating a small handful of peanuts every afternoon, and I noticed my nighttime leg cramps almost completely disappeared.
That is the magnesium working its magic, Mary. It helps calm the nerves and prevents the muscles from seizing up at night.
That is a huge relief for so many people who lose sleep over those cramps. But we have reached our final food, the one we call the golden move. Doctor, why is this one so special?
The third golden food is the simple boiled egg. I call it the golden move because it is the most complete protein source on the planet.
We have all heard about eggs and cholesterol. Should we be worried?
For most healthy adults, 1 egg a day is perfectly safe and incredibly beneficial. Eggs contain choline and vitamin B12, which are the power cables for your nervous system. As we age, our communication between the brain and muscles can get a bit slow. Choline helps speed that connection back up.
So it helps with coordination and balance as well.
Yes, it keeps your reflexes sharp. And the protein in eggs is absorbed much more efficiently than the protein in a steak. It goes straight to your muscles to help maintain muscle tone and energy.
I switched to having 1 boiled egg every single morning for breakfast. The biggest thing I noticed was my energy levels stayed steady all day. I did not get that afternoon crash where I felt like I had to nap.
That steady energy is what gives us our lives back. It allows you to go for that walk or play with your grandkids without running out of gas.
Exactly. It is about fueling your body for the life you want to lead.
We have our 3 triggers to avoid and our 3 golden foods to embrace. But how do we put this all together into a real-world plan? Doctor, can you walk us through what a typical healthy day looks like using these foods?
I would be happy to. It is actually much simpler than you might think.
Doctor, you have given us the science and the reasons why. But let us talk about the practical side of this. How does a typical day look if we want to follow this path?
It is actually very simple to follow and fits into any schedule. Think of it as a 3-step rhythm for your body. First, start your morning with 1 simple boiled egg. This provides that clean protein to wake up your muscles and your brain. Second, for your lunch or dinner, try swapping out that heavy red meat for some tofu. You do not have to do it every meal. Just aim for 2 or 3 times a week to start. You will notice you feel much lighter and your joints will not feel as stiff. And third, keep a small handful of peanuts ready for your afternoon snack. It is the perfect way to oil your joints and prevent those late-day cramps.
That sounds incredibly doable for anyone listening. But do we have to be perfect with this every single day?
Absolutely not. In my experience, consistency is much more important than perfection. If you miss a day, do not worry about it. Just start again the next morning with your egg. The goal is to build a habit that supports your freedom. We want a lifestyle that feels good, not a strict diet that feels like a prison. And remember, everyone's body is unique, so it is always a good idea to chat with your doctor before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have existing conditions.
That is a very responsible reminder, doctor. It is all about making choices that allow us to keep doing what we love. I love that perspective. It is about making choices that allow us to keep doing what we love. Now, I want to hear from everyone watching at home. Look in your pantry or your fridge right now. Do you have eggs, tofu, or peanuts ready to go? Drop a comment below and let us know which one of these golden foods you are going to try first. We would love to hear your thoughts and see your progress. Mary, seeing you so active and full of life now is the ultimate proof that this works. What is the one thing you want to say to someone who is still feeling that pain and frustration today?
I want to tell them that they are not broken. You might just be giving your body the wrong instructions through your food. Do not give up on yourself. I was in that dark place too, and I found my way back. Start small, be kind to yourself, and just keep moving.
Thank you so much, Mary. That is such a beautiful way to lead us into our final thoughts for today. Mary, looking at you today, I see a completely different person than the one you described earlier.
I feel like a different person. I was out in my garden early this morning. I was kneeling down and planting new bulbs without any fear. And when my grandson came running out to see me, I did not hesitate. I stood up and I lifted him right off the ground. I held him close and I felt strong.
That must have been an incredible feeling.
It was the best feeling in the world. I don't feel limited by those physical challenges anymore. I am a woman who is in control of her health. I am a woman who can keep up with her life.
That is exactly the goal of everything we have discussed today. Your body has an amazing ability to heal and respond if you just give it what it needs. It is about moving from inflammation to restoration.
It is such a powerful reminder for all of us. Age is just a number on a calendar. It does not have to define your strength or your freedom. But the choices you make in your kitchen every day truly do. If you found Mary's story inspiring, please share this video with someone you love. We want everyone to know that it is never too late to reclaim your vitality. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real stories and practical health insights. We are building a community where we all grow stronger together. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Take that first small step tomorrow morning. You are worth the effort. We will see you in the next video.